Hello, thank you for joining me today for our Health Talk Express. My name is Ashley Hernandez and I am the Health and Wellness Educator at Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Bexar County. Today's talk is Stress Less, Mind Matters. The purpose of today's talk is to explore how stress affects our mental health. So let's get started. Philip Chan reflects on the day when stress almost killed him. He was a rising star in the corporate world and was at a very successful period in his life. Philip's accomplishments came with a high price. His work was very stressful, and the way he handled that stress severely impacted his health, leading to a health crisis that almost cost Philip his life. Since that episode, Philip has gone about reframing his work, not doing different work, but approaching work differently, specifically to remove stress. And as a result, he is much more effective at his job. Here's how Philip got to that point. He was a 32-year-old up-and-coming leader in a Fortune 500 company. At that time, he was running several projects that demanded working long hours and meeting tight deadlines. One project that he cared a lot about had to be dissolved because management could no longer provide the resources to complete the work. As a result, some of his project team members were let go. This letdown caused Philip to become extremely stressed and discouraged to the point that he wasn't sleeping or eating well. Because Philip had a deep sense of responsibility for the project team, the disappointment caused him to internalize a huge amount of stress. Philip recalls, "I used to believe that you solved every problem with your head. You just needed to up your focus and intensity. No problem was insurmountable if you could just think harder and work harder. But I didn't realize that constantly wrapping up my intensity was compounding into serious negative effects on my health. And that almost killed me." While at work, Philip started to have chest pains and trouble breathing. He doesn't remember what happened next, but a coworker found him collapsed by his desk. Quick action by his coworker saved his life. When Philip arrived at the emergency room, his blood pressure was dangerously high, and he was physically exhausted to the point that he couldn't sit up or stand. Philip recalls, "I woke up the next day and a couple of different things happened. One was that I didn't understand why I had become so stressed out about all the things that I was stressed out about. In what may have been my final moments, those weren't the things that I really cared about. I mean, I care about my projects, but not more than life itself." This awareness began Philip's radical change to take care of his health that continues today, in an awareness of both how much we need each other and the power of generosity and kindness, demonstrating that intelligence, problem-solving skills, and effectiveness aren't the only skills that matter. Looking back, Philip has learned he needs to rethink his relationship with stress. He has realized stress limits the brain and leaves it unable to work as well. According to Philip, if you care about something, you must learn to stress less about it. That was an important realization. If I care about something, I need to learn how to relax about it so that way I can be more effective. Philip advises others that beyond stressing about general workload, dwelling on the related risks, and getting wrapped up in thoughts of what could go wrong, a person can develop patterns of fear that start to seem normal. You get so used to being afraid that you start to accept it as a sign that you're working hard. "Oh, I've got this big presentation, so I've got to be nervous." Ambitious people tend to think that life is a series of high-stake projects. That's a dangerous thought process. We need to rewrite that thinking. Being mindful enough to shift some of that time you spend being anxious into more expansive, relaxed, and creative modes tends to produce better results. And if you can change your mind in that way, you can control your stress. Philip Chan's story is just one example of how stress is affecting Americans. It could possibly be you that's affected by stress this way too. So how often do you feel stressed? Often? Seldom? Sometimes? I know myself, I used to feel stress very often, but I've taken into consideration some of these different methods of rethinking about my stress and about the situation that actually changed it to where I stress a lot less than I used to. A healthy life is a balanced life, both mentally and physically. However, in our fast-paced society, that becomes increasingly difficult. You're not alone if you feel stressed often, or if it's a major issue in your life right now. This is a national health problem, as well as the fact that we're going through a lot of things right now as our society is dealing with COVID-19. This is a good way for you to stop and think about how stress is affecting you emotionally, and rethinking our stress helps us to cope better with this situation. In a national study examining the role stress plays in American lives, a quarter of the participants reported experiencing a great deal of stress, with 37% experiencing some stress, 23% not very much stress, and 14% little to no stress. People in poor health are twice as likely as the general public as a whole to experience a great deal of stress. When asked about things they do because of stress, the top 3 behaviors reported among participants who experienced a great deal of stress were: sleep less than they normally do, eat less than they normally do, exercise less than they normally do, attend religious services, or pray more than they normally do. Mankind would not have survived without stress. The fight-or-flight response is a brilliant way for our body to respond to life-threatening situations. Early humans used stress to alert them to potential dangers, such as predators. Our caveman ancestors' existence was primarily based on their survival mode. In fight-or-flight response, our body releases stress hormones, adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol, which give us a rush of energy to either run away or fight. Heart pounding, heavy breathing, and a surge of energy enables us to focus our attention on the situation to quickly respond. Once the danger is removed, our body returns back to a balanced state, or homeostasis. In today's modern world, fight-or-flight mode can still help us, such as rushing to someone who is in the path of a car. However, in our technology-driven society, our stresses are primarily psychological rather than physical. The challenge we have is when our body goes into a state of stress during inappropriate situations. When this happens, the blood flows to important muscles needed to flee or fight, and the brain functions are lowered. This can lead to not thinking clearly, which can hinder our ability to be effective at home and work. If we remain in a state of stress for extended periods, it can be harmful to our health. High levels of cortisol can increase a person's blood glucose and blood pressure levels. People need some amount of stress to stay healthy. While our body craves homeostasis, or physical calmness, it also needs physical stimulation to ensure that our organs are functioning well. This includes the heart and muscle system used during fight-or-flight situations. There are 2 types of stress. Eustress, or good stress. This is when a person finds a situation motivating, inspiring, or enjoyable. Falling in love, receiving an award, or anticipating college graduation are examples of eustress. Distress, or bad stress. Distress is often shortened to stress. Negative stresses can vary, from getting pulled over on the highway by a policeman to life crises such as death of a family member or serious financial loss. Chronic stress, or stress that lingers for a prolonged period of time, can be a threat to a person's health. Stress changes a person in 3 areas of their health: cognitive or mental, emotional, and behavioral. Cognitive examples include memory problems, poor judgment, unable to concentrate, indecision, brain fog, or self-doubt. Emotional examples include moodiness, anxiety, fatalistic thinking, panic, frustration, and depression. Physical examples include low immune system, rapid heart rate, aches and pains, skin complications, indigestion, and high blood pressure. Behavioral examples include increased alcohol, cigarette, or caffeine intake, sleeping too much or too little, unmotivated, overeating or not eating, and isolating themselves from others. Unmanaged or prolonged stress can lead to poor health. Becoming aware of stress-related changes is important to prevent illness and long-term health problems. So I'd like you to take a second to list one thing that stresses you out right now. When you look at the stress, you'll see that there's a mental, physical, and emotional component to that one thing that you wrote. Stress is a normal part of life. Stress is not avoidable, but it is manageable. Identifying stress-related problems as early as possible is key to action to lower our risk for serious stress-related illnesses. Our response to stress is under our control. One strategy is to examine our thoughts. Stress begins in our mind and our reaction to stressful situations. Cognitive restructuring or framing is a coping skill most promoted by health professionals. This method goes to the heart of the problem, changing your stressful perceptions of the situation that caused you to experience feelings of fear, anger, and other negative emotions. Controlling your thinking so stressful situations don't automatically lead to stress. Thinking is an effective way to cope with stress. Cognition is a person's mental process, which includes thinking and reasoning skills. The cognitive restructuring method involves positively changing your mind frame to a less threatening, negative perception to a positive one, which will allow for a peaceful solution. For example, rethinking a self-doubting, negative attitude to a self-confident, positive mindset. It is not necessary to work with a counselor, therapist, or psychologist to practice cognitive restructuring. But if you do feel that you need to talk to one, you should talk to your doctor and see what they suggest. The mind is a powerful organ. It controls every part of life, yet if we don't care for our mental health, the mind can lead us to make poor decisions. Stress is one area where we need to harness that power of the mind. Rethink your thinking. Focus on replacing negative thoughts with positive thoughts in a coping strategy that can be practiced at home. Cognitive reframing involves a simple 4-stage process. Each step has a question that will lead you to a solution to reframe your thinking. Step 1, identify the situation. Step 2, assess your thoughts, emotions, feelings, and behavior. Step 3, challenge your distorted thoughts. Step 4, develop a balance, alternate thoughts. Thoughts, emotions, or feelings and behavior all interact to cause a certain outcome. Thoughts can be disordered, self-doubting, and unhealthy. Examples of negative thoughts are, I can never get this right, this situation cannot be changed, or I am a failure. Emotions or feelings include worry, frustration, anxiety, and fear. You may also experience body sensations such as fatigue, irritability, low energy, and an upset stomach. Behaviors are how you react to the situation. This can be taking out your frustration on another person or possibly binge eating. Let's look at a case study to better understand cognitive reframing. Sarah's supervisor emails her to come to his office later that day. She immediately feels threatened and her heart starts to race. Her palms feel clammy and cold, and Sarah's immediate thoughts were, I know he doesn't like my quality of work, and it's my fault for not working longer hours. Sarah was not able to focus on her work in the afternoon, and she lost her appetite at lunch. In her visit with her supervisor, Sarah finds out she was worried about nothing. Her supervisor thanked her for her hard work and asked if she would agree to take the lead on an important project. Let's apply the cognitive restructuring steps to Sarah's situation. So step 1, we want to identify the situation. Supervisor at work is angry. Step 2, assess your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. I must have made a mistake. Now I've done it, they'll fire me for sure. Emotions and feelings. Feelings of sadness or anxiety. And behaviors. Spend time obsessing over mistake. Frustrated, anxious, nervous. So why don't we use step 3? Challenge your distorted thoughts. Is the thought based on fact or feelings? Am I making assumptions? What supports my thoughts? Is my thought an exaggeration? Substitute the thought. My supervisor could be angry about anything. They are usually happy with my work, so even if I've made a mistake, it isn't a big deal, and it can be fixed. So this is an example of how we can use the cognitive restructuring. So let's practice. It's your turn to practice cognitive restructuring. Think back to the stressful situation I asked you to write down. Next, complete step 2 by answering the questions. What were your thoughts? What were your feelings? What were your body sensations? In step 3, challenge your negative thinking. This is usually a mental exercise to examine your thoughts that you wrote. In step 2, is the thought based on truth or based on fact? Is it an over-exaggeration? As a final step, write a positive, balanced thought to reframe your thinking. Cognitive restructuring takes practice, but in time you will find that this coping strategy will help you adopt a more positive outlook on life. While we can't control many of life's situations, we have power over our thinking. Trust the method and you will see the rewards. So if you care about something, you must learn to stress less about it. So in our story with Philip Chan, his message was that you must stress less about the things you care about. For Philip, this began with changing his thinking about his job and personal relationships. In which ways can changing your thinking help you with things that you enjoy, your work, or your relationships? Nothing is so important that it should cause us to become overstressed and affect our health. With this presentation, I have uploaded 2 papers. One of them is a thought log, and the other one is Take Action, Think Positive. I challenge you to practice healthy thinking to reduce stress. Again, it's really important for us, and it gives you a better positive outlook on life and helps reduce stress. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I would like to encourage you to share the information that you've learned today. For any questions or information, please email me. My email address is here at the bottom of the screen. And also, I'd like to encourage you to take the evaluation as well as check out our Facebook page, Texas AgriLife Bexar County. This is really important. We give a lot of information about COVID-19 as well as health, information, physical fitness, and nutrition. These are all important things for us, and I encourage you to share them with everyone you know. Thank you again, and I hope you stay safe and stay healthy.